Hey, what's up? Welcome to DGenEd. That's degenerative education, meaning none of this is financial advice. Just me having fun looking at charts. And so this is Ticker Request Live for Sunday, March 23rd. Always try to do Ticker Request Live Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern, unless, markets closed on Monday or something comes up. Before I get into the charts and Nameless, hey, what's up? I see you in the chat. I'll come back to your requests in just a second. But I did just want to kind of start out the Ticker Request Live. I get confused. Ticker Request Live, pre-market prep. I'm doing those all the time now. But I did just want to pull up just the channel page here. I did put out 3 videos today, and I kind of tried to do them in different styles. Effectively, they're all the same, just me rambling about stocks and trying to understand the data. But last night, or yesterday, I guess I should say, I was out for a walk through the park, enjoying myself, and I started to think about basically Graham, or no, not Graham. Let's see, I'm just going to go over to my subscriptions over here for 1 second. Let's see. You can revealing all the trash that I tend to watch, which I don't watch much of this stuff. Let's see. Just coming back here. So Andre Jick, the way that he starts his videos is with like a little bit of an intro. And I have always tried to figure out, what's a better way to kind of casually summarize and then dive into the material. And so I tried to do that with the Neo video. Took a lot more time with editing, but I feel like, overall, I just think that the beginning of that video is really nice. I kind of tried a more casual version of that for Unity software. And then for Rivian, I just did kind of my normal start. And so, yeah, if you guys are curious and, are maybe not interested in these stocks necessarily, check those videos out. Let me know your thoughts. Which intro do you like better? Because generally, I don't put out a ton of videos. So if I do spend a little bit more time editing them, I think that's, only a good thing there, because then I just produce better content that attracts more viewers, more subscribers, and that's good for me. But then it also keeps the content kind of concise for you guys. Although my videos have gotten longer, 26 minutes, 17, and then 14 minutes here. Maybe that's a gradient based on the amount of time I put in on that intro. But really, just thinking about the videos rather than just doing videos where I ramble about a stock. This one, yesterday on that walk, I was thinking about, what is the narrative or what is the story that I'm trying to tell about the stock, whether that's related to the data or just kind of sentiment, whatever it is. And just with that little intro, I think that it really sets a much nicer picture or story for the chart. And so, yeah, let me know what you think about them. But I had a lot of fun just kind of like brainstorming, how do I execute that intro? And so hopefully you like it. And also it was just getting more practice with editing videos. And what's the software called that I use? Final Cut Pro. I used to make videos or edit them with iMovie. Now I mainly just trim the intro, the first little bit from the start, and then I get into them. But yeah, you'll have to let me know which ones of those you like. So far, the Neo one has the most views, so I kind of like that style. But these were put out more recently, so I can't judge them too much for that. But then let's see. Coming back to the chart here, before diving into all of the requests, I did just want to mention, this is something that I am going to try and start trading over weekends. This weekend, it went the other direction than I was hoping. But basically, on Fridays, I believe it's at 5 p.m. Eastern when the CME gap begins to be formed, when I guess the market's closed. I was expecting it to be 4 p.m. Eastern, but apparently it's 5 p.m. Eastern. I looked it up. So, I'm just going with that. And that was for around $84,000 for Bitcoin. Currently, was above 86,000. Looks like it hit a high for the day so far of 86,600, somewhere around there. But it's above this CME gap. And so kind of what I was planning on doing with Bitcoin for trades over the weekend, I had initially done it a couple weeks ago for just like 10 or 20 bucks. and it wasn't really that great of a trade. Of course, not a lot of money, but thinking about just kind of like upping that whenever there seems like a nice opportunity. So basically, if the CME gap is formed from the Friday 5 p.m. Eastern close, looking at the hourly time frame to find that, to see if price does go lower, then that gap would then be filled by the time market opens. And so if I just, draw out the measurement, if it were to have come down, that'd represent, like a 4% move. So it's really not that exciting. But, if this is something that happens every weekend or so with Bitcoin, that could be a nice way to trade it. However, it's like half the time it goes down, I guess maybe a third of the time it goes down, third of the time it's flat, and then a third of the time it goes up. And so it has gone above that CME gap. And so while there's not an opportunity to trade to fill that gap to the upside, and I don't really have exposure to short Bitcoin until the market opens, so I'm not going to do that. But I guess this is kind of a good message that Bitcoin might be above 84,000 now. I suspect by Wednesday it will be back to that level. So good to not chase right now, I guess is what I'm trying to say there. So anyways, hopefully that's a nice little dive into that. I will be covering Bitcoin for pre-market prep. So I'll have more to say on that then. But yeah, I'll catch up on the chat. See, Nameless is requesting. And hey, how's it going? I always forget to say hey. I can definitely throw up Path and Pags for you. And then I have, let's see, from Saul. What's up? How's it going? Cheers. I'll cheers you in a second. I got my drink right here. I'll throw up TEM, which is Tempest AI. I assume that's right. AI is kind of the hot topic right now. And then Big Bear AI for sure. I'll look at that. And then also ones that I had up here that I was kind of thinking about making a video on over the weekend because I noticed some options data that stood out. And so I'll just go over that briefly. I'll probably do a video at least on GameStop in the coming days. And so I just have it on my notepad here. GameStop saw an increase in net call premium of $1 million on Friday. So that suggests to me that, we are starting to see kind of the momentum shift and that this is going to be going higher. And Roaring Kitty's level, of course, at 2341. We are above that now. Also, volume looks like it was pretty nice on Friday relative to how it has been the last time we had volume that high. Let's see, 6.89 million. That would have been back here on February 20th with this bullish engulfing candle that unfortunately just was followed by further downside, so it's kind of a fake out there. But yeah, I think this could be going higher, and with it having closed right around 25, that has been a big level that like Colin Gladman has talked about, and in the overnight as well as from the after hours on Friday, it is trading above $25 a share. So we'll have to see where that takes us. Also, Luminar, I'm not going to say too much on this one. It had an increase of net call premium of $594,000. So over $500,000 increase in call premium. So looking pretty good there. I have to say I have 200 shares that I sold a covered calls on with an $8 strike on Friday. So that would have closed in the money, but I rolled it to this coming Friday. I believe the upcoming max pain is $6 a share. So I suspect this move to be unsustained and that it to pull back. But at the same time, I am also not too happy with Luminar following the video that the guy put out. I forget his name, Robe or something, Mark Robe, that basically unfairly trashed Tesla. And it seemed like there was some fraud, some other stuff in there. I don't like that Luminar participated in that. And with everything that's going on with Tesla, I'm long Tesla. I believe in Elon. I believe in Tesla. And thinking about that stuff, I don't want to get into politics. I think that's bad. But just thinking about that with Tesla, would someone rather put their money on, let's say, a Green New Deal? Let's just call it that. That gets pushed forward but doesn't pass and can't make progress? or would one rather put their money on a company that has been executing, a person who has been executing in renewable space for more than a decade now? So, yeah, I mean, anybody short Tesla right now, they can go to hell. Sorry. And then also Marathon Digital, that had a net call premium increase on Friday of $1.21 million. And those were the ones that I kind of wanted to mention that I didn't get to making videos on over the weekend. So yeah, maybe Marathon is finding a bottom soon. Maybe Bitcoin's finding a bottom. And so, yeah, I will get on with the cheers. Sorry for that big rambling intro, 10 minutes long, pretty crazy. But yeah, I got my normal drink here. And yeah, I had to work yesterday, so that's why I didn't put out a video. I swapped Friday for Saturday, which I got paid time and a half for Saturday, so good there. But sucked being at work. Got to be at work the rest Monday through Friday, but working afternoon into evening. So I kind of prefer that, although I end up getting pretty tired doing live pre-market preps. But anyways, it's Sunday. Don't have to be at work in the morning. I'm excited for the market to open. I think that we could be at a bottom, seeing a nice rally. But I think that we might be seeing another bottom later. So good to expect the rally to be kind of short term, like, what we see here in Marathon Digital. But anyways, usual drink. Cheers to you guys. Cheers to the weekend. Cheers to the start of another exciting week. Hopefully we make some more money. So cheers. All right. I think that made that a little bit stronger than I needed to, but I've made them stronger, so it's all right. And so I will start with Nameless's request with Path. Sorry again for the long rambles. And I have no idea, whenever I edit videos, I watch myself, and sometimes I just get lost in it. But yeah, I don't watch myself live stream, so I hope I'm not, it's not too painful. But yeah, so looking at Path, let's see. So we got this big green move here. And one thing that I think is really important, and I'm, again, very much so working on my volume analysis, but I think something that's really important whenever there's a gap, whether it's the upside or the downside, I don't think that you can really analyze the volume for the daily candle or for the day. You have to look at a shorter time frame because you're seeing this massive drop down. And so with that, this gap down, there's going to be, because it's closing here and then opening down here, there's going to be a pretty big shift in volume that's going to largely take place before the market opens, or orders will be getting executed right when market opens, whether that's a stop loss or a limit sell or, whatever it is. And, at least for me, stop losses are only executed once the market's open. So if we do look at this, I guess I was going to do 10 minute. Yeah, so I'll just do that. And so if we go back to where we saw that gap, what happened with that volume? Okay, so yeah, because it's up here and so this is kind of, I have a hard time understanding this. So it's, okay, because that's the pre-market. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because why is this candle up there? I guess that's, so I'm just trying to understand this stuff better. All right, gotta fast forward. So yeah, it's kind of confusing because it's that initial candle suggests that price was up here, but then it comes down. If we look at the 10-minute time frame, that's not really what happened, or at least not as far as I understand. But what we see here is this big flush down. We see actually not really too huge of an increase in volume. We actually saw more volume. It looks like, wait, sorry, I'm an idiot. That's the after hours. So yeah, that's when the gap down happened. And then we saw this move here. Okay, so yeah, I'm still getting used to the shorter time frame. I do that during pre-market prep, try to look at it. And yeah, the gray here, that is after hours into pre-market. So we see this gap down, and makes sense that volume was higher right before we switched into the after hours, because after hours pre-market volume is going to be really low. So that makes sense. So we see this gap down, and then once the market opens the following day, we see this big, spike in that volume. And so that suggests to me, I think I talked about this with one of the stocks. I think NIO. Yeah, I think NIO was that. We see this, big spike in the volume. And so I imagine that is people had stop losses set. For whatever reason, they weren't paying attention to it. I don't know. I pay attention to that stuff. And their stop loss was, let's say, at $10. And this opens below 10 on this day. And so those stop losses, all of them get, executed. So you see a big spike in volume right when the market opens. That makes sense. And that's effectively like, either you can think of it as like panic selling, or I forget the other word for just capitulation. But following that, we see volume taper off, kind of cool off. And so I think that's a good sign that, this is bouncing and it's starting to hold. But then at the end of the day, what do we see? We see a ramping up of that volume. And NIO had kind of the same thing, but it didn't get up so high. And so what we see at the beginning of the day, when there are all these stop losses and all of that stuff, 4.95 million shares traded in that 10-minute block. But then if we look over here, we have 4.28 million, so a little bit lower, but pretty close to that same amount of volume. So that kind of makes me think that this move higher here was maybe not, didn't have that much behind it, because it did, while it moved up, it did pull back notably. But maybe that's an unfair assessment, because I feel like I wasn't as, let's look at NIO, I guess, for this comparison. I'll come back to Path real quick. But just for NIO, what we see, so it was like this big spike in volume on Friday. It had gapped down, can clearly see that. And there was this big spike in volume, but at the end of the day, the increase in volume, this was 5.09 million shares traded, whereas at the start of the day, it was 10.49. So while there was a little bit of a spike, it's not as notable as what you see over here with Path. Just much more selling at the end of the day. So that makes me think that the move down is maybe not so likely to get a bounce. But, if you watch the NIO video, I have kind of a bias in that. So anyways, we see this bounce, we see this move higher, and it starts to consolidate. This is the daily candles now. And I'm just going to remove my doodles because it hasn't done either of those. We did, let's see. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, there's that. I must have drawn this gap, following last Sunday's pre-market prep. And so just thinking about this, we have an up move and then consolidation. So potentially that's a bull flag. But if we look at volume goes up here and then it just holds. Volume tapers out. And so let's actually look up, what a bull flag looks like in Investopedia. And so actually, I really just want to look at images. And so what do we have here? So for this, so bullish flag examples. So this you have, up move and then consolidation. And that bullish volume is, a big spike in the volume at the top there. And then volume just kind of cools off, waiting for that another surge in volume. And so, because it's like, as price is coming down a little bit here, a little bit of a downtrend, buyers aren't, like massively sellers aren't, dumping it as it's coming lower. It's basically like those who, don't want to, people are not selling, as it goes lower, nobody's selling. There's low volume, and that suggests they're going to, be standing firm there. If volume increases as it goes lower, that means like stop losses are getting hit, people are panicking, all that. And so, yeah, with this being up here, but volume is also pretty, or not volume, but just like price action is pretty light. Getting a number of wicks to the upside, but yeah, just that volume, there's nothing there. Looking at the MACD though, looking at these indicators down here, that MACD has been red. Maybe it's about to switch green. And yeah, this is tough. Maybe switching over to the weekly might be, yeah, because that on the weekly, that's a, doji, spinning top doji. Open close. Let's see what the open and close was. Open for the week was 10.79. Close for the week was 2 cents higher at 10.81. Wick to the upside, wick to the downside. So that suggests some indecision, but it's still kind of in this, downtrend. It hasn't broken out. See the volume cooling off there. So, it's like there aren't, there was a flush here, but then it closed up here. There just aren't really that many sellers below about 10.50 or so, it seems like. But there aren't enough buyers. I don't know if my volume analysis is any good there, but let's see. This is a lower low in the stock price. So what we have here, bigger picture, and this is not, exact necessarily. And I might actually just delete some of these lines just because there's all that clutter there and stuff. And I'll leave that up there in case it does come down sub $9 to like 8.59. That's the 100% extension there. But just thinking about, I'm just going to do a quick little trend line here. I'm cutting the bottoms off of some of these, but regardless of that, you still see it's just progressive lower lows. The marker there at 950, that's the lowest low we see here on the chart. And with that, with lower lows in the stock price, what do we see with the RSI? We see, super massive low here following this gap down. We've got another gap down, so lots of gaps. The RSI here was 1511. That's pretty insane to be that low. And then over here, when it gapped down again, the RSI 2564. So that's oversold. That's below 30. But compared to back over here, lower lows in the stock price, higher lows in the RSI. That's bullish divergence. And so with that, bigger picture, and maybe we can even look at this on the weekly. Yeah, look at that. The only way, if this were to kind of crash down, maybe fill that gap around $10, then I'd think that this could be shifting. But I think, looking at this on the weekly, still lower lows, higher lows in that RSI. The MACD did flip red a few weeks ago, but it doesn't really look that red. Maybe it's, over here, you could say the same thing, and then it ended up being pretty red following that. But this could just be, a bottom. With this bullish divergence that we're seeing on both the weekly and the daily time frame, I feel like this is probably formed a bottom. But if it crosses 997, fills that gap, then maybe not. So good to be cautious with it. But I feel like initially I was looking at this and like seeing those wicks to the upside, which is something I don't like about it. It's not being able to get closes above the, really like the high from Pi Day. March 14th was, or the close, I should say, was 1088. And yeah, there hasn't been one day following Pi Day that there has been a close above 1088. So that's a pretty notable level of resistance. So ideally, see a close above 1088. And then once 1088 is accomplished, want to start to see closes above these wick highs that we've seen. And then if it does even just wick down, if it closes above 997 but wicks down to there, filling that gap, then I think, it's kind of broken this potential bull flag, and maybe that bullish divergence is not looking so strong. But generally, because of that bullish divergence, I think that this could be moving higher. So, but I could, of course, be wrong. I think most of the time I analyze whatever you request. I think I tend to be wrong. But yeah, I'll switch over to PAGs. I'm just going to have another little sip. All right, let's see. Got some doodles on here. Oh, this makes me feel kind of good. You know, I'm always cautioning about levels to the downside because I'm a worrywart. But these seem to hold up. Also, this extension was a pretty nice bottom indicator there. Wick through it, but a close above it. Little hammer candle there at the bottom. So yeah, good look there. Starting to stair step its way up. But, yeah, kind of, man. You know, I don't know how much of it's coincidence and how much of it's skill. I think the majority of it's probably coincidence. But on the 19th, so it would have been Wednesday, got a wick above this orange uptrend, but a close effectively right at it. And so that close was at a price of $8.52, right around $8.50. And let's see where that trend line originates from. Okay, and so that's from the low, it looks like, of November 1st of 2023, and then started to consolidate above that level in October of last year, consolidated there, but effectively, you know, ended up forming a bear flag before going lower. Pierced that level here, but got rejected, and so back there. And so that could be a little bit concerning. Let's see, though. We do have some interesting stuff with, and I might actually just remove my drawings for a minute. So, like, over here, you know, it's kind of like double top effectively. But let's see what the volume says. Let's see what the RSI says. So, over here, we have a big spike in volume, at least relative to the other little candles here, or the bars down there. And that was at a volume of 8.65 million. And as we're getting up to here, the high in volume is around 5.74 million shares traded. So that doesn't look so great, although it is lower. So you wouldn't necessarily expect the volume to be, you know, needing to be there to back it to move higher. And then with this, you know, lower highs, we also see lower highs in the RSI. And so that's good that there's no divergence there, because that would be bearish divergence when you're looking at the tops of things. That's bearish when you're looking at the bottoms of things. That's bullish if there is divergence. And here, you know, let's see, higher lows, also higher lows, so no bullish divergence there. Looking at this, hey, I'm wondering, does that look like it could be an inverse head and shoulders pattern? So I'm going to have to throw my drawings up there. I already kind of suggested that purple line there. What's this white line that I have drawn? I mean, it's got more touch points and stuff than the orange one, so I think that one's a little bit more credible. Pretty cool, though, that it bounced from that red trend line. I mean, that's based on over here. So yeah, I mean that, and I should actually color that green, because I feel like, you know, green, thinking about go, buy. Whereas red is like, you know, stop, cut losses, or maybe that would be a cut loss level. Anyways, I'm going to leave it green because that was a really nice level to be buying at. And following that upside move, potential inverse head and shoulders. And I'm just going to make some of these lines a little bit thinner, so it's not so overwhelming to look at. Yeah, so, okay, over here though, let's see. Yeah, because there's not like a push in the volume to get the price up here. And so, you know, it's like if there's a surge in volume moving the price up here, that means that there are buyers pushing it up there. But since there's not too much volume behind this move, it seems kind of weak. So not really supported by that, whereas like the volume was higher over here, the volume was also higher here. And something that Colin Gladman has talked about is that, if you're forming, whether it's an inverse or regular head and shoulders pattern, when you see these moves, the pulses to the upside, you want to see a volume backing those moves, and you want to see volume cooling off on the downside. And so for this inverse left shoulder, we see a volume coming down. We do see an impulse in volume there as it moves up, so that looks good. But now we want to see higher volume for the other moves higher to test that neckline. And so over here we see lower volume. Clearly that was the highest volume there. 32.49 million shares traded, so quite a lot. And then, for this move, lower volume. And then again, here for this move, lower volume. So that makes me think it's actually looking kind of weak, and that we could potentially be seeing, I was contemplating removing this red line, but considering that it does line up with that gap that has since been filled, I think that we could be seeing, kind of a rollover and then maybe a retest of 775 or 774 is where that blue line is. So that's kind of what I see with this one, unfortunately. Like, I think it's going to be getting rejected from that orange line, not moving up to the white line, and not quite doing this, or at least not yet. And so I'd say like my revised doodle, would probably be like, a pullback to this, and then ideally a bounce, and then getting back up to there. And so that's kind of what I would expect. And then with that, maybe that could turn around, find that orange level of support, and start to kind of stair step its way up. So that's what I would think. So might be getting a retrace to 774, 775, not to the penny, but around a little bit of a retrace. But I could, of course, be wrong. And then if it does go higher, like if I am wrong, it does go higher, I'd want to see it holding above like 850, being approximate where the cursor is right now, but that really just corresponding with the highs here. The open on, February 21st was at 853, and then the close on March 19th was 852. So right around there. Want to see some closes above that level. And really, above the wicks that we've seen here. And then eventually 897, that wick high there. So hopefully that's helpful, kind of diving heavy into these. But tough to not when there's so many doodles up there. And trying to kind of distance myself from the prior doodles that I've drawn. Clean up the chart a little bit. And also I think like these charts are I've just been thinking about this as far as like Doge goes, the Department of Government Efficiency. When I draw these lines up here, we can look back in time, all these lines, there were other lines, I cleaned them up, but it gets tough to, I got this white line here going back all the way back here. It gets tough to clean up the charts. It gets tough to delete what I put up here because maybe it's going to be useful in the future, who knows? And so when we're creating laws, regulations, agencies, positions, it gets really tough to delete those because we get attached to them because maybe it'll be useful again in the future. Maybe I'll be like, haha, I saw that and I knew it was going to eventually be important. And so I just think this is, for me, like a really nice example of why it's so tough to be cutting government, whether it's waste, fraud, negligence, or waste. Very tough to do that, and also with a lot of pushback. And so it's like if every time I were to delete a line, and there were potentially to be like people getting let go, but getting put on severance, as far as I understand, or just there to be a little bit of a gap there in maybe some service, but really just thinking about what lines do I really need up here? What services do we actually need to our core? And so I think that's just really tough to do that kind of cleaning. But I think if you put it into that kind of perspective, it's, I think it can be a little bit more appreciated of those challenges that are being faced. And I think that they're all for with good intention. Mistakes will be made, but yeah, good intention. Anyways, I'm going to move on to the next one, which is Tempus AI, ticker symbol TEM. I don't think I've ever looked at this one. And so before I forget, because I tend to forget it at the end of these, I'm going to add that to the DGen Ed list just to show that I looked at it. Okay, so this looks kind of cool. Maybe you can guess what I'm thinking here, but I'm just going to draw it out as array. So going from the pivot high here to the pivot high here, probably just drawing that approximate, but then just doing it over here. So like not to the highs over here, but just to intersect with that, peak here. And I guess it pierces it a little bit, but I'll make the line thicker so we can't see it. I'm going to make that purple because that potentially looks like an inverse head and shoulders pattern. And so just to prove it, let's see how well I can doodle this. See, there's a little happy face for that inverse giant. Okay, and so from that, really like the key with this, and also, this might be this looks like it's, to be honest, this looks like it's making a bear flag, so take that with a grain of salt. But maybe I'll come back to that because I think, with this gap here, this being potentially a bear flag, I think this is kind of interesting. And hey, Benjamin, what's up? Let's see, Saul is saying picked up 20 shares of TEM Friday at 49.36. So I'll try to keep that in mind, right around $50. And let's see. So this gap over here is, and by the way, I said hi to Benjamin. I got a cheers, Benjamin. So happy Sunday. Hopefully you got a nice week ahead of you. I'm working the second shift, so afternoon into evening tomorrow and through the week, which I think I kind of prefer because I'm able to be more productive, whether with the charts or at home before going into work. Whereas last week I worked mornings into the afternoon, first shift, and I just end up super tired when I get home and I have a tough time doing things. So I'm looking forward to this week. I'm excited about it. And I think the markets are looking good. So, but yeah, cheers, guys. But yeah, let's look at this gap here. So the close on January 17th was 35.15. I do have that marked correctly, even though I'm reading it backwards. Just mark that blue so we see that gap down there. Something to maybe be a little bit concerned with. But also, I like I don't know that there's anything to this, but I just really like the kind of like psychological aspect because I've fallen for this with SoFi where I had identified like two gaps, one at like $6. I think it was like I think it was 603 or there was a 3 in it somewhere. And then there was another one a little bit lower. And that first one got filled and I was like, nope, I'm not touching it until it gets to that next gap. And then it took off. I got left behind. No big deal. There are other stocks to trade. But I think that's an example of, it's good to not necessarily be so stubborn. It's good to, be agile. And if one gap is filled, maybe that's the one and it's going to take off. So maybe good to average in or get a, quarter of position there so you're not left behind. But also, I think that like the psychology of there being a gap there and, especially when it's a gap like this where you can very clearly see it, not like, there's also a gap right here because the close on the 14th was at 831, or sorry, I think I'm dyslexic a little bit. The close was 31.83 and we haven't seen a wick down to that level. So there's also a gap there, but that's a harder gap to see. Not as many people would probably notice that. This one, that's very clear. People notice that. Retail notices it. But to think that everybody sees that, I like TEM, I want to get on board, but I see that gap there and I'm not going to touch it until it comes down to 315. Also, it looks like there's a bear flag, so I'm going to be patient. I'm going to wait for it. And then there's some sort of catalyst. Who knows? No idea. Then this takes off. Those people get left behind, and then they FOMO in up here, or they just, have to move on, whatever. So I find that to be compelling. Another thing that I can do here is a Fibonacci retracement. So just going from that low of 31.36 up to the high of 91.45. And so I'm just going to adjust that to the day, 91.45. Yeah, so that looks good. And, I drew that blind. I had no idea. I didn't know the 786 was up there because it does change depending on the last retracement that I had drawn. And so that 786 potentially found support there. Also, a thing I like about it is it didn't just, like if you have a level like this 786 is at 44.22. It's very precise. It's not 44, not 44.50, 44.22. Not even 44.25, not a quarter of a dollar, 44.22. And so let's say I do this retracement, it's just based on math, and I see, okay, well, 44.22. I think when these retracements are drawn, nothing's perfect, nothing's precise, and so the level is either going to get pierced and it's gonna, you're gonna see close below it like this, or it's not even gonna get touched. And so here we saw this close below it. Didn't look so good. And that was also like we see a wick below that level, kind of testing it, but closes above. And then over here, not only do we get a close below that level 42.22, but also a close below the low that was hit on March 10th. That was a low of 43.53. We actually saw it get into the 42s here with a close on the 13th of 42.17. So, that looks kind of bearish, But then it starts to consolidate here. I would think that, people are starting to, hey, this is a bear flag. I might want to draw my Fibonacci extension to see where this could be going. So, from there to there, where is this going? This could be going to 228. That's crazy. I don't think that's happening. I think that this is potentially putting in a bottom there around, that 786. I think this gap may not get filled. I, of course, could be wrong, though. But what we see here, downside move, consolidation. We had a high here on March 17th at a price of 50.86, so got that mark there. And what do we do on Friday? We closed above that level. So I think that looks really good. I think that this looks, to me, although this could be a fake out move. So, tomorrow, if it starts to pull back, if there's a reversal candle, then, this could be going lower. But speaking of what it could do, in the after hours, it did go up by 19 cents, but in the overnight trading, it's up nearly $2, which is less than 4%, 3.84% it looks like. It's currently trading in the overnight. I can't put it up on the chart here. At least I don't think I can. I did just update this, but yeah, no, I can't. It's not going to show it on Webull here. But, it's trading around 53.40. I'm struggling with my words. Probably because I made so many videos today. I'm just tired, I guess. But yeah, I think it's looking good. But really, you want to see a secondary close above this level, 50.86. I think that seems likely. And speaking of this gap to the downside, let's see, do we have any gaps? We have multiple gaps going to the upside. We have one here that's at 57. Let's see, the close was, wait, I don't know why it's supposed to be giving me the numbers up here, but it's not. I don't know. Oh, yeah, close. Sorry, I'm an idiot. The open or the high. Wait, no, yeah, the close. Nope, there's no gap there. I'm thinking about this going up. It's not going up, it's going down. So yeah, no gaps there. I'm an idiot. No gap here because I'm an idiot. But we do have a gap here that has not been filled. The closing price, not the opening price. I'm an idiot. The closing price was 69. I like it. It sounds good to me. 69.57 right there. Make that a dashed line, blue line there. So yeah, I mean, that seems like a level of interest. And getting up there from 50.86, a little bit above your average, Saul. 35% move to the upside. That seems feasible to me. Maybe you get rejected there or like consolidate there. So maybe it'd do like, a move up like this. And then maybe because there were some people who bought there and they just kind of want to get a breath of fresh air. So maybe it gets rejected there and then starts to do that. Let's see what the final drawing looks like. Oh man, I had it so nice. Webull sucks. I'm just kidding. Webull's okay. I'd rather be doing this in TradingView, but I'm not going to pay for it. Anyways, I think that looks really good. And thinking about this bigger picture, I mean, what does that look like for my little doodle? That we're making this inverse head and shoulders guy a little bit happy, giving him that right shoulder there. And so I have no idea if this would play out because of it's like super massive. But going from, let's see, I got to scrunch this to do this. Going from the low of 31.36, and then if I just like take this up to that neckline, just, straight line to get that midpoint of that measurement right there. And then the other half is approximately where it could go to the upside, which would be around like 142, 143. Really, technically, I think it's like, want to move it up so that midpoint is right there where it would break. And then it could get up to like 150. And realistically, I'd probably want to extend this out, to match kind of my doodle there. And then that, if I'd move that up, that would represent, like 155, 156. But that would be April. I think that's, no, that would not be April. April would be getting back to like the neckline, which is around $100. And I think that would be very notable resistance. And with this inverse head and shoulders pattern, something very interesting with this. Now, I was just talking about this, how Colin Gladman has mentioned that what you want to see with these goofy inverse head and shoulders, whatever patterns, you want to see volume progressively increasing. And so let's just kind of shift this over here. And so we see, kind of like the first attempt, the beginning of making that the edge of the left shoulder. I think you guys see me in reverse, so maybe this looks like it's left. And we see pretty low volume there. The highest volume was 3.13 million shares traded. And then as we get up here, the highest volume there was around, again, 3 million, shares traded. But it's getting more volume over here. That's to the downside, not looking so good, but that is forming the head. But then as price starts to go up over here, volume is in the 33 million share range. It's a lot more shares traded. So I think that seems like it's looking good. But then now, if this is to move higher, you want to really see millions, 10s, 20s, 30s, and beyond. I mean, yeah, because the max here was, dang, you want to see hundreds. Wait, no, I was reading the RSI. I'm an idiot. This is, yeah, I guess so the maximum here was like 34 million. So you want to see this get into like 40 million volume on the daily to be getting up to here. And then that would be suggesting that this is playing out. So yeah, I mean, hopefully that's helpful. Fun to do this little doodle. I'm happy not only did I give him eyes, but I also gave him pupils. So you can tell that he's looking in the direction that he wants to go in. That's just coincidence, so I didn't necessarily mean to do that. Maybe a little bit, but not too much. But yeah, so hopefully that was helpful. TEM at 50, I think that's good. I guess, if one was to have a stop loss, basically to kind of like negate this bullish potential that we're seeing here with that higher close. The closing price, the low, I should say, on March 13th was 42.10. So maybe that's a good stop loss level, maybe 44.22. I'm not sure. Personally, I don't really trade with stop losses that much. I kind of avoid that by just not trading very large positions, but I'm trying to get more, my trades are executions, not just, if it goes lower, like, then, I'll just buy a little bit more. So yeah, I think that this looks good though. This makes me happy. And cool, yeah, glad that's helpful. And then I will go over to the other one that you were suggesting, BBAI, which this one, let's see, pretty massive pullback. Wow. Oh, yeah, I mean, this is actually one that I hold some of. So I think, I was intrigued by it because if I talk about Colin Gladman a lot, it's because he's pretty active on X, and I spend a lot of time there. And then also, I just find the analysis that he does, it's like, I feel like anybody who makes videos has a different time horizon than me. Everybody's time frames are different. But I feel like Gareth Soloway, I still watch his videos a lot, but I feel like he's just very short term and very much prepared for things to go down. So he kind of very cautious in and out with his trades. Whereas Colin has a lot more bullish theses, and he trades more of the stocks that I'm interested in. And he's brutally honest. So I like that about him. And I believe, this was like, you see this green line here. It's like, kind of like, bullish consolidation there breaks out. And then this is on the daily. I think they were talking about, this, finding support here around that green line and then going higher. But then it started to fade lower, gap down. He had a small position, cut his losses. I missed his post on that. I don't really trade based on what other people talk about. Maybe occasionally, like with Mr. Chart Norris, maybe with natural gas. Sometimes I do with Gareth Soloway. But usually I just like to watch how other people analyze charts just to kind of help inform me to better analyze charts, generally, not specifically to a specific stock. But anyways, I decided to pick up a small position of BBAI. I think I have one call that expires in January, and I can actually look that up. I'm planning on cutting a lot of positions, trimming them. So BBAI, I have, I have one $10 strike call that expires in January of next year. That's currently trading at, it looks like 42 cents. In my average, I only have one contract. It was $1.20, so I put $120 into it. And that was before this gap down. And I'm kind of left holding the bag with it. But it expires in January, so I'm not too worried about it. And I'm not necessarily jumping on it's cheaper now, trading at 42 cents. It's a third of what I paid for it. I could really get my average down. No, I'm going to chill because the average could go lower. And then just thinking about the stock that I have, very small position. It's usually just and I'm trying to get better at this. I need to have a really strong, solid theses before I trade something, and I need to do bigger positions because then I just end up with a lot of small positions. Don't make fun of me. I have 5 shares of BBAI at an average price of $4.19. So my average is, and this, I guess, is a nice example of, there's this gap here. If my average is $4.19, that close was $4.20. Man, somebody's playing with me. It's a fun number, $4.20. Because if we do get up to that gap, there's another gap here, dang it, that people will probably want a breath of fresh air. And so for me, getting back to 420, I'd be break even effectively there. So yeah, maybe I'd exit my position. I'm not sure. Hypothetically, I don't have a plan for that or anything. I don't necessarily have a plan to buy more, though, just kind of want to wait and see what happens. And before, actually, no, at the end, I know that there are some more requests. Okay, so Benjamin has one on FLNC, so I'll definitely do that. But I'm just going to finish with BBAI before I add more to the list. The other tickers that are on here, I've either gone over them or I don't plan to. So, Benjamin, you are next on the list. And so let's see, multiple gaps down, really not looking too good. But let's see, what are we seeing? Okay, so putting this into perspective, we are still, higher lows over here, whereas the RSI is lower lows. As of right now, that's hidden bullish divergence because it's based on the bottom, so that's always going to be bullish. What normal bullish divergence is when you're putting in lower lows in the stock price, so it's kind of like you're getting nervous that it's going lower, but you're seeing the RSI stepping up. And I'm actually just going to make sure that I do have that right. So bullish divergence. And let's just see images. And this is the one I like. So regular bullish divergence is lower lows in the stock price. So yeah, I mean, it's like you're getting nervous. Hey, crap, my stock price is going lower. I'm going to cut losses because it looks bad if you're not paying attention to the RSI. But then you look at that RSI and you see its higher lows. And that gives you a little bit of confidence that, hey, that's bullish divergence. And hidden bullish divergence is when you see those higher lows, but lower lows in the RSI. So that RSI would make you think maybe, hey, that's a little bit bearish looking, but you see the higher lows there. And so, yeah, anyways, lower lows in RSI, higher lows in the stock price. Even if we do, take step back further, these are just nonstop. You can go back over here to lower lows here, but then that RSI is putting in, so higher lows moving forward, the RSI here, lower lows. And that's really like, this is all like going back to these lows. Yeah, I mean, so right now this is higher lows, is kind of flat. Yeah, so this is, what am I saying? This is hidden bullish divergence because you're putting in higher lows. Yeah, this is hidden bullish divergence. Sorry if I said it the other way. I'm tired. So higher there, lower. So, hidden bullish divergence. So maybe that's something, but at the same time, I mean, this is just putting in lower lows. It's a little bit concerning. You do have, though, with the MACD, you do have this look like it's been red, with this pullback, but it looks like it's potentially getting ready to flip green, but maybe it doesn't flip green so much and just kind of like hangs out around neutral, comes back red a little bit more, and then it starts to go. What are some levels? I don't know. There's some, I don't know. It's tough. So let's look over at unusual whales. Excuse me. So I think I have something over here in the bookmarks. BBAI. Nothing BBAI. TRL. No. Oh, BBAI. Yeah, because I'm holding this one. Because I'm an idiot. It's... let's see. The average from Friday was 38 cents, and my buy was $1.20. So I suck. But let's just expand this to look at the premium to see. It does look like the bear bull sliders in the favor of the bulls at 44%, considering that neutral. So that is a majority there. But really looking at that, bearish is only slightly lower than bullish. So it's pretty 50-50. But what we can see, as the stock price went up on Friday, maybe putting in a hammer candle, we'll want to look at the weekly too. But stock price went up, but nothing too crazy. We see net call and put premium going up but net call premium going higher. So that suggests more calls are being bought than puts. But take it with a grain of salt because the net put premium and net call premium didn't go up a super ton amount. Net put premium increased by 85.5 thousand, whereas net call premium increased by 102,000. And so that might seem like a lot to you and me. Definitely is a lot to me. I don't have that much money to be putting in on some calls or puts, but it's not like millions of dollars, and we're not really seeing like, big spikes. The spikes that we're seeing in this, like the call premium here, this went from 45,000 up to 80,000. So that's like a $35,000 jump there. That's not a very big whale. You see $1 million jump or hundreds of thousands of jump. That's a whale potentially. With the net put premium here, it's at 15,000 and then jumps up to 57,000. So that's around a $40,000 jump there. So yeah, I mean, it's not nothing, but it's not something crazy. And so let's just take a step back, look at the past 30 days. And so yeah, stock price has come down pretty massively. You see that in the yellow. And a month ago, we saw some kind of dynamic call and put premiums going up, down, whatever. It's really just been flat. So what I am planning on doing with my position, at least, I check BBAI every day because I do have that call. I'm waiting to try and get my average down to start to see that, hey, there's a clear bottoming signal. And right now, we're not really seeing it. There's no spikes in call or put premium that really stand out. The highest call premium that we've seen was from Pi Day. Of course, I don't know why, but that day stands out. From years ago, I think on the plug chart, Pi Day was always like, hey, look, it's Pi Day. Other stocks. I don't know if it's just people are weird with numbers. And to be honest, I think that's what it is. Just the fact, like, this is the thing that I think is so neat about the markets is, it's like I joke about something like 69 or 420 because of Elon or just because I'm an idiot. Or like Pi Day, 314, that's something special, or a repetition in numbers. It doesn't matter what I feel. Just the fact that I think about that means that other people are thinking about it, and those other people, they might not just be entertained by it like I am. They might actually believe, have these superstitions. And so it doesn't matter what I believe. It doesn't matter what you believe. If you think Pi Day is something stupid, that's fine. But the fact that other people might think that it's something means that it is something. It's they will it into existence, or whatever that saying is. But anyways, Pi Day, net call premium went up by nearly $500,000. And so that's like the biggest spike we've seen in recent history. And that's, a good amount of money, but it wasn't too much. And it looks like they were kind of buying this little run up that didn't amount to much. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not too bullish on BBAI, but since I do have some shares, which I do, like, I might add another share to my position this week. Nothing crazy. I only have 5. But as far as adding to that call, I'm waiting until I see bullish data, like $1 million data here, and I don't see it yet. So I'm chilling. But anyways, I did want to look at the weekly to see if there's anything on that. It's a bearish engulfing candle, This was a little dragonfly. Maybe there's something there, but it was also this from the prior week, but it was also lower volume than when we had this massive move down. So here, 283.45 million shares traded the week that ended on March 7th. The week that ended on Pi Day, 238.7 million. So, numbers. This is 283. This one's 238. Lower volume with this potentially bullish dragonfly doji there, but it had lower volume, so it wouldn't have made me think that's like a really clear bottoming signal. And then that's followed by a bearish engulfing candle, although it's followed by a bearish engulfing candle with lower volume. So maybe it's not backed by that much, but still, I don't think the bottom's in just yet. So I am being patient with it. I think that TEM looks like a much better chart than BBAI. And also, I guess my concerns with BBAI, maybe some of that's reflected in TEM, which, is also an AI stock. But TEM, like I said, it's around, now it's actually below 53, but it's up in the overnight. So maybe something big's happening there. And so, yeah, I'll pull up Benjamin's request of FLNC, and Mara. Okay, and so after I go over FLNC, I'll go over Mara. I did kind of mention it at the beginning of the video, but I think I have multiple, one contract, but multiple calls of Mara, so we can look at the options data with that. I really just, kind of have the philosophy with Bitcoin. I have a lot of belief in the 4-year cycle. And, I think that a lot of people will be like, oh, well, if the stock market's doing this, why isn't Bitcoin doing the same thing? Or shouldn't Bitcoin be following the stock market? I think that, maybe this is me getting into more astrology, which I'm not into, but like that type of thinking. But just, like with Bitcoin in the 4-year cycle, last year was the halving. And so that's really like when the bull market starts, but we don't really see like the euphoric tops until the year after, which is this year. And so my thesis with Bitcoin and crypto more broadly is that we'll be seeing it topping between May and the end of December of this year. I may be wrong. I have no idea because we got a Bitcoin president. So, everything's different, really tough to compare. But yeah, I see that Bitcoin will be rallying into the end of the year. So the call that I have with Mara, I don't think I have any shares, but that is dated into January. And so, yeah, I'll go over that when I do, but I'm just going to have another sip of this. And I'm going to have some water. Excuse me if you can hear the swallowing. But yeah, my eyes are getting dry. Maybe the water will help. And so anyways, looking at FLNC. Okay, so with this, it's kind of like an attempt to get to, the highs here, 588, but only hit a high of 577. So it's like not such a great look, especially with lower volume. But since it didn't get to higher, maybe that's a good thing. But looking at, this is lower highs in the stock price, the RSI, you see this peak here corresponding with that date, 28.96, and then over here, 34.72. Unfortunately, lower highs in the stock price, higher highs in the RSI. If I pull it up over here, lower highs in the stock price, higher highs in the RSI. That's hidden bearish divergence. So that's not necessarily a good look. And I'm just going to doodle up some trend lines here. I was hoping that'd be perfect, but I got to adjust this over here. So it's kind of arbitrary, the starting point, but it's just like, over the levels over there, resistance. And then from this point, that's, kind of doing a little bit of that consolidation there. And following this down move, I feel like it could be breaking lower. And so I guess like the level that I would really be keeping an eye on is this low from March 13th, which is at 497. And so, let's see, how much lower is that than current price percentage-wise? That's 7.5% drop. For me, if I was in this, don't plan on getting into it. If I was in this, I'd probably want to have a stop loss at 497 or maybe 496. I don't know. But so far, this has been putting in higher lows, so that's a good look. But it's also been consolidating, like with lower volume, putting in hidden bearish divergence here, right here, more immediately. And then also, yeah, I mean, more macro, lower highs here, higher highs here. So yeah, I mean, it looks like, I think that this is probably going to break to the downside, is my bet. Since it hasn't followed this yellow doodle that I have, I think it's more than likely, and I could be wrong about this as always, but I think it's more than likely to maybe do something like this, so just keeps people hoping for longer and longer, and then, it just kind of falls off a cliff there. Let's see how that doodle looks. That's not such a bad looking doodle. So I'd be cautious with it. And I see Bill's Mafia is here. And so it says, I had a dream that we had the stock market crash as bad as 1929. Even Wall Street collapsed. I saw another comment like this. He says, I am a Christian and I saw this in a vision. It seemed real. I don't know. I feel like God is telling me to tell you. I feel like you're a bottom indicator. I'm sorry. I think that, let's just look over. I'll let that interrupt the thought process on FLNC, because really, Benjamin, that's kind of the summary of my thoughts there. I think that FLNC, I think that it looks like it's going down. But I guess to maybe negate my bearish sentiment, I have this level down here at 497. So I would mark that as a thick red line. That's, stop loss level. And actually, I want to make it darker red because it's a little too orange. And then over here, the high from March 7th, 588. That would be I want to see a close above that, reclaiming that high. That is, let's see. Just going to make that thick and make that green. That's the level I'd want to be seeing some closes above to kind of negate my bearish outlook. So if I'm right, 497, I wouldn't want to take any more risk below that level. If I'm wrong, it gets above 588, there's still hope. And so, yeah, just kind of the comment that I got there, and there might be a couple other ones. Let's see. And maybe the comment from Ronald will be supportive of what I'm about to say. And so I'll read his comment. We are in the golden age. The sad thing is personal savings just hit a 100-year low, though, so that kind of makes sense. Bill's Mafia. So as far as, because I feel like a lot of that stuff, whether it's let's see. And so personally, and I'm not judging or anything, but I don't make any decisions based on that stuff. I personally am not religious. Religion completely outside of the market, has nothing to do with it, in my opinion. But if people are making decisions based on that, then maybe there's something there. So if some believe it, it will it into existence type of stuff. And but also, thinking about, a lot of people, everybody's talking about, hey, Great Depression, all this stuff. I think that with the technologies that are coming out with AI, to be honest, I think that a lot of what's going on with Doge, I think that's all because of AI. I think that, and especially government, I don't know if any of you have worked for government or been involved in government. I've been in a government program. I've worked with the Coast Guard. I've worked with NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. I've gotten funding from the government in my prior career doing research as an oceanographer. And thinking about my experience with government, there's this saying, and I don't know where this comes from. I feel like it's a quote from something, but I learned it when I was in AmeriCorps, and it's government cheese. And, it's basically just like, it doesn't matter what you get from the government, it's going to be pretty bad quality. And, with like the technology, the infrastructure that the government has, whether that's payment systems, all this stuff, it's all very much outdated. And so that's kind of a lot of what Doge is working on, is this software development and stuff like that. And so a lot of these kind of like jobs that have just been like grandfathered in because, oh, we're using this technology now. We're using this dial-up technology. I don't know how many of you guys have used dial-up internet, but I don't think I look it, but I am old enough to have been introduced to the internet via dial-up and AOL, Instant Messenger. But so many tangents. It's basically the government is using dial-up technology. And so with that dial-up technology, you've got all these, it's kind of like the, making the phone calls back in the day. I don't have experience with this because that's too old for me. But, with the switchboards and all of that, calling up the operator, connect me to whatever, you see it in movies. And I feel like that's kind of what the government's running on. We're running on switchboards. We're running on dial-up technology. We don't need to have those switchboard operators anymore. We can have them replaced by either automated and or AI. Because automated doesn't necessarily have to be AI, although I guess it's like a very, early stage of artificial intelligence, I guess. But with that being said, I think that there's going to be a really big boom because of these technologies. I think that we're kind of at the dawn of a new industrial revolution that, if you listen to Elon's all hands meeting for Tesla, he talked about, a world of abundance based on, if we have AI and computers, robots being able to do a lot of the work that humans do, there would just be, it's like I think that one of the arguments, which I think is really like kind of a backwards thing, a backwards argument. I don't need to get into this, but just like thinking about immigration, and in the U.S., a lot of immigrants tend to pick the produce here, and whether they're illegal or not, whatever. That's not the point of this, but it's not really like desirable work, and so. People who are willing to do that work, which tend to be immigrants, people who are very excited to be in the U.S., they'll take that work and they'll do it. But if we have robots, automation in the fields, we're not going to need to have that kind of labor anymore. And so then that can create, more abundant, life for people. And so, yeah, I think that we're, it's kind of like .com bubble type of thing, except I don't think much of it's a bubble, because we see examples of this stuff being implemented, whether that's in factories with automation, demonstrations with robots. I'm sure you see so many videos of people with full self-driving, all of that. And so, yeah, I think that robo-taxis, oh my gosh, we're not going to have to drive ever again. You may not need to own a car. Anyways, looking at the SPY, this has come down a lot. I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, hey, this is a bear flag. It's going lower. I don't think so necessarily. I think that we could be seeing this going higher, but I think it's also good to be prepared for the downside. And just thinking about this, ending the week on a green candle. We've had the past 5 weeks have been red, but last week was green, and it's a green week with a spinning top candle, followed by, or that followed a hammer candle there. Big wick to the downside. So I don't think the world is ending just yet, at least not as far as the stock market goes. So that's kind of my perspective on that. But I have way too many lines drawn up here. Dang it. And I'm going to have to clean this up tomorrow. But at least I'm doing it live, so I can do that pretty casually. And so I'll check up on more of those comments. And then I will, Benjamin, if you're still here, I will go over like my justifications with Marathon Digital. And Paul is saying, have you ever done the one man wiggle live on YouTube, or do you do that in your private time only? I saw your ex post about it, LOL, unless that was a fake account. I'm not sure. Somebody had mentioned the something about a wiggle, and I don't know what you're talking about. If that one man, that sounds like it's maybe gross. So no, Paul. And yeah, I think I was just entertaining the humorous nature of that. But no, I did have also. I had a mustache, and somebody asked if I'd shave it on stream, and I think I said I would to like raise some money or something, but I decided not to, because I embarrass myself enough just talking about stocks. I don't need to do it in other ways. And so Roaring Kitty follower says, when GameStop MOAS? I have no idea. Bill's Mafia says 10 likes. Nice job, Andy. Thank you. For saying that. I'll cheers you guys for that, by the way. Sarah Gibson, I see your comment there on Fartcoin. I'll look at it in a second. But before I get into that, I might just do a little justification of a Marathon Digital for Benjamin. And the GameStop MOAS. I think that things are looking pretty bullish. I'm not going to get into it too much, but closed below 25. Colin Gladman's talked about that being a pretty important level. I think he does really good non-biased analysis of it. Also, the Bronx Viking posts a lot of really useful information on unusual whales related to GameStop. If Roaring Kitty is starting to buy, or if there are buys that seem like Roaring Kitty, whether that's with GameStop or Unity Software. I personally think Roaring Kitty is invested in Unity Software, but maybe that's a little controversial. You can own multiple stocks. And I think that he is doing multiple trades there. But yeah, I mean, I think that we are above Roaring Kitty's average here, 23.41. And I think that, with the trading from after hours and the overnight currently above $25 a share, $25 is a key level. So I think that MOAS, I have no idea, but I think that we could have seen, I think that we saw a bottom here, and that, I have this purple uptrend. It's been notable support in the past. We tested it. So I think that's I'm biased because that's my drawing that I've had up there, and I have not adjusted it. And I like it when I draw things that, tend to play out. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that GameStop's looking good for maybe getting back up to 35 or getting to 35. Had this double top up here. Shame, I should have trimmed there because I could have bought more back down here. But yeah, I don't know when MOAS will be happening, but I think that it's a deep value play for sure. They got a lot of cash, and they are pivoting into the cards, grading, and I think that they could have more experience type of things, maybe in partnership with Unity Software. I don't know. That'd be cool. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to do a video on GameStop, and there was an increase in net call premium on Friday of $1 million for GameStop. So that does suggest that there's some bullish moves coming. But I'll just flip over to Marathon Digital. So I don't necessarily think the bottom is in for this, and I will just share from checking on my phone because I don't trade on my computer. Marathon Digital, I don't own any shares, but I do own a call. It's the $50 strike call that expires in January. My average is $1.36, which is pretty high. I've got 3 of the contracts, so not a ton of them, so it's not a huge deal. But it's currently trading at around 60 cents. My average is $1.36 or $136 per 3 contracts. So I'm in the, I put about a little over $400 into it. But then anyways, and that's not financial advice or anything. None of this is that I'm just a guy on the internet trying to get better at trading. Okay, so my options theses here, Marathon Digital, this is the $50 call that I have. And so with Marathon Digital, they had more of a net call premium increase than GameStop. Their net call premium increase went up by 1.21 million. See a lot of buy-in at the end of the day, so I think that looks good. But there was, big drop off here, some selling. So Because this is, a big drop off. That's net call premium from 834,000 down to 200,000. That's kind of a whale dumping is what it looks like. But you did see that volume go up. So yeah, I mean, that maybe suggests, I'm not sure exactly, but if we do take a step back, or maybe before taking a step back, see that bear bull slider there, 46% majority bullish side. If we do look at the past 30 days, we see net put premium going up a lot, not net call premium a lot, at least not to a major extent. So I don't necessarily think the bottom is in just yet for Marathon, which means I think that Bitcoin could be going lower. And if I do look at the Bitcoin chart, I mean, to be honest, I talk about this every day during pre-market prep, but like 75,000, 72,000, those are dip buying levels that I'd be really excited to grab more aggressively at. And of course, 69,420. I think that's a price to sell the farm at, not necessarily, but I could see Bitcoin just being back up to 100,000 by the end of the year, at least. So I'd really welcome a pullback, and during that pullback, I would then be looking more for Marathon Digital. So hopefully that's some helpful perspective, Benjamin. And let's see. Okay, so I did have the comment from Sarah on Fartcoin. Some of the big names have vowed to buy a few coins each time they poop. And so that's got to be at least once a day, I imagine. And yeah, so I'll pull it up. I personally am not interested at all, I'm sorry to say, in Fartcoin. But maybe it's pumping right now, I guess. I imagine that's why you're asking about it. Fartcoin USD, and let's see, Binance Futures, Fartcoin, this is Bybit, perpetual contracts. It says just Fartcoin USD. This is from TradingView. So I'll just look at that. Yeah, this looks like it could be rallying. And this is a Solana coin. Personally, I don't know how to buy it. It didn't look like it was on Coinbase. But yeah, I mean, this could be, this could be bumping into some resistance around 72 or 73 cents. Man, sorry, it's like, I guess the hiccups. I don't know. I need to slow down my talking. But yeah, so I'll just pull up this trend line and just, draw this from over there, put down the shift key so it's horizontal. That looks like it could be some resistance, and then maybe that would be forming an inverse head and shoulders. So what I could see, if I were to doodle it out, I could see this go up to there, then pull back to form that right inverse shoulder, and then maybe consolidate here before breaking above, and then going higher. I don't necessarily know that it'd go that high because, it's like, the measurement for that move would be really up to here around 125. And with it currently trading around 50 cents, that's more than a 2x from here. So yeah, I mean, I think that while I don't understand what the utility of Fartcoin is, I could see where it's currently at and the possibility of this putting in this inverse head and shoulders pattern. I could see this at least 2xing from right now, but that could take, until, I guess, April. That's not much time from now, but that is in the May to December timeframe of where I think stuff could be topping. So yeah, I mean, I think that this is potentially, could make a lot of money with it, but you could also lose everything with it. So yeah, I that's the first time I ever looked at Fartcoin. So thanks for the suggestion, Sarah. Cool to look at that. And so Dean is saying personal savings just today, 100-year low. Yeah, so I think that, that's kind of like if, it's like things aren't going to collapse because people don't have savings. Things are going to collapse because people have too much debt that has too high of interest rates and they're not able to pay it. That's when things start to collapse, not when people run out of savings. I run out of savings, I'm not going to have my vacation this summer. I can live with that. That's not the end of the world. But I run out of savings. I'm living on credit cards. That zero APR goes away. And now I'm looking at 25 to 30% APR, and I got thousands of dollars of debt, maybe tens of thousands, hypothetically. And I then can no longer afford the lifestyle that I have, and the bank takes back the car, takes back the house, that type of thing. We're not there yet. I think that could definitely be happening. But what I think, I think that is a really encouraging person to listen to. Not the most dynamic speaker, but Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary for Trump. He just seems like a very level-headed, very smart guy. And effectively, what I think that they are trying to do is they're not trying to cause a recession. They're trying to engineer a controlled recession so that things do pull back, but in a controlled manner so that they can rally later on. Because what the Republicans are going to want to do, they're going to want to remain in power. And so the way they do that with the stock market, at all-time highs and all this stuff, I'm going to remove my drawings. Hey, this is potentially a calamity that this is coming down. They don't want that. And they want this to be recovered by the time there are midterm elections so that Republicans can stay in power, potentially. If people are happy, if stock market's at all-time highs, and, I don't know. I think that they want to get that rip the Band-Aid off now kind of philosophy. And so I think that they're going to do that. And I think that we will be seeing new all-time highs in the stock market later this year. I think that when you guys are saying that this is going to all-time highs and all that stuff, that they're never going to end, it's just going to keep going up, that's when I think the recession might happen, not when everybody is screaming that the world is going to end. I think that's when a bottom happens. I think that this could go a little bit lower, though. I had a post on X. I guess I'll just pull it up. And let's see, from my profile over here. Let's see. Yeah, and so this was from Keith Fitzgerald. I'm not sure what fund he runs or whatever, but I know that he is on, was it CNBC or Fox Business, whatever, talking about stocks. He just puts, these nice little videos together. Super nice guy, and he actually responds to me when I comment, which is super cool. A guy that's on TV. He also lives in the Pacific Northwest and rides a motorcycle. I used to live in the Pacific Northwest, and I do ride a motorcycle, so I like him a lot. But anyways, he was talking about is the bottom in, and he's basically saying in this 57-second video that, one of the best lessons to learn is not, is the bottom in, but if it is, have a plan for it. If it's not and it's going lower, have a plan for that. And so I kind of wrote this justification here that I agree that the bottom could be in, but also in agreement with him, I am also prepared for further downside before the true bottom is in. And so take the weekly Tesla chart, for example, which I have here. So has it retraced to the 786 and potentially found support? Yep, that's the yellow line there that you can see. Yes, but further downside is also possible, likely returning to the trend line that goes back to the pandemic lows, which would suggest that the true bottom may be found around 170 or 169.42 for Elon. And so that is this trend line here, the pandemic lows over here. And so that has served as notable support in the past. But at the same time, if a lot of people see that level get tested, markets tend to surprise us. Maybe it doesn't get tested. Maybe the bottom's in. And so that blue line that I have there was a daily gap that was filled during a prior test of the trend line. And so there's a daily gap here. This is the weekly chart, so you can't see the gap. But at that confluence of levels, that's where we found a bottom. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm prepared for Tesla to go lower. And if it comes down to around 170, I'm going to go pretty aggressive on it. But for the time being, I'm just nibbling because I'm prepared for it to go lower, but I don't want to necessarily miss out. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully that's helpful there. And so Dean's following up. That's crazy about the personal savings hitting a 100-year low. Yeah. And yeah, I wonder if it's just kind of a change in lifestyle and stuff, the way people live. I don't know. Trey's mustache. You should do a live stream with Trey's trades. To be honest, to have a conversation with him would be. I know that not everybody likes him. A lot of people don't appreciate him or whatever. He's kind of like a hero to me, and I feel like, I don't know if you guys saw the recent video that he put out. He's going to start putting out more YouTube videos. But for me, he gave me more conviction in AMC, probably, when I should have, walked away from it. But he also was like one of the first YouTubers that I would follow who did technical analysis that I could really follow. Like I could understand what he was talking about. He's a good teacher. And so I really thought that he was good. And also, I don't know, his story, how transparent he is about a lot of the issues that he's had and stuff. I feel like, and I don't feel like, I don't feel like people are good people or bad people. I feel like people have good intentions or they have bad intentions. I feel like he has good intentions. And so by that, I'd say that I think he's a good person. And yeah, but at the same time, when I started making YouTube videos, I wasn't aware of his situation, but I was very cautious because I did not want to become, in the type of situation that he was in, making $2 million and then losing it all. And so I don't think I'm like that because I'm very calculated. I'm very, at least I try to be, the way that I talk about things, but, emotions can take over when the market opens. But I try to be very calculated. I try to be very disciplined and conservative. And so I think that he had an issue with that, with like gambling and stuff. I'm not a gambler. I don't have much of an addictive personality. To be honest, I used to drink more, but this is pretty much the only time I drink. I did buy a 6-pack last night because I was going to have a fire, but then I realized it was too cold and I had partaken in a different recreational activity that made me just want to chill inside. Yeah, everybody has their vices. And yeah, I don't know. If he wanted to stream with me, I'd be stoked for that because that'd be a huge boost for my channel, but he'd never want to do that. I'm a little guy. But I have a lot of respect for him, and I think that the story that he's telling is really valuable for people, a cautionary tale. And I also think that it will be a very nice redemption arc, too, because I think that he's a quality guy. I think that he knows what he's doing and that he's disciplined. And he's also long Unity and Tesla, I believe, and I like those two stocks. And so I'm just continuing on with the chat. I guess I've fallen kind of behind on it. Let's see, Trey's mustache, I responded there. What is a man wiggle or a one-man wiggle? American Truther, I have no idea. Haglel, Hijo, cheers. Cheers to you. I recognize your avatar, but I'm not sure if you changed your name there. But yeah, cheers to you. Bill's Mafia says he agrees. Benjamin, I think about $4 will be the bottom for Marathon Digital. $4. I don't think it's going down to $4. I don't think it's going that low. If it does go lower, I would say, the bottom over here, $7. First got to cross that line. But generally, I think that Bitcoin is going higher. I guess, you could argue that this is a head and shoulders pattern. But But yeah, I mean, I'm biased with this stuff, and maybe this will be like my downfall or something. Um, 786 here, around $10. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of consolidation over here. I think that around $10 would probably be a good bottom for Marathon, but that would also be a really good time to buy Bitcoin, I think. But yeah, we'll see if it hits 10. It could hit 7. Could it hit 4? That would be a higher low than the low over here. That was the low from 2022. But yeah, we'll have to see. I don't think the bottom's in just yet for Marathon. So I think if we're all just waiting, I think that's a good thing. Papa Powell, miners will almost all go to zero. I don't know. I find listening to Fred Thiel, the CEO of Marathon Digital, I think that that's a pretty compelling business. The other ones, yeah, I mean, I could find to be a little bit more questionable. I feel like Marathon Digital, I think Fred Thiel's a pretty smart guy. I think he understands the business really well, and I think he's really resourceful. So I feel like this one could be a winner. But yeah, I think that if you want to go long Bitcoin, go long Bitcoin. Don't mess around with miners or alts or memes or whatever. Or if you do, just do it with funny money, Ronald saying cheers, so I'll say cheers again. This is running low. I've been streaming for, man, I was thinking it might be around 2 hours, but an hour and 40 minutes. I'll probably end the stream soon, though. And Nameless is saying, do I think PAGs will go back to $6? No, I mean, I'm pretty compelled by this bottom here. I think that was it. But I think that, yeah, I mean, I think that it'll come to 775, and then I'd say that's like a reassessment level. It could go lower because the red line is a downtrend, but also I could be wrong and it could break out up here. So I don't think it's going down to 6. And also, I mean, yeah, there's kind of this inverse head and shoulders pattern there. That purple line I should make thicker. So yeah, I mean, I don't think so, but it's also like a Brazilian company, I believe. Is that right? And so, or is it South American somewhere? So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. There are a lot of variables there, but I generally think that any pullback would be minor. I don't think it's going back to 6, but I could be wrong. As always, I shouldn't have to say that. I feel like 50% of the things that I talk about, I'm wrong about, at least, because I'm still learning. Anfadrew, sorry, just joined. Did we do ChargePoint yet? If so, can I scroll by? No, I have not done ChargePoint. I'd be happy to do it. I don't know if you're still, it's been about 10 minutes since you commented, so I don't know if you're still doing it. But yeah, I just have all the tickers on the left there that I did put up. But yeah, I'll pull up ChargePoint. And so kind of my thesis with ChargePoint has shifted. Really just, I mean, it's been going lower. Or actually, my thesis really hasn't changed. I just think that with the reverse split likely to happen by August 19th, because that's 6 months after they got the notice of non-compliance, trading below $1 a share while listed on the New York Stock Exchange. I think that by June there will be an announcement or a vote that there will have to be a reverse split. And I think that will have to be executed by August. And with reverse splits, I think it's probably going to go lower. And considering that this has just been fading lower, this is one of my bigger holdings. My average is right around 169. I think it's like 166. It's one of my bigger holdings, but it's not huge. The only like really huge position that I have is AMC, and then I would say a conglomerate of my crypto holdings. But yeah, I mean, ChargePoint's one of my bigger holdings. But with what's been going on with Tesla lately and the video that came out about Luminar that was very unfair to Tesla, I kind of just realized that, like Luminar, I mean, it's possible that's just over engineering. It's possible it's going to be a great complement, but it could just be over engineering, overcomplicating a system that's already established. And, there's a giant network, a network effect, which is Metcalfe's law, I believe. I hear about that from Raw Paul talking about crypto. But yeah, I mean, so Tesla already has AI and autonomous and full self-driving, so not autopilot, which was what was shown in that video. And so I kind of view that like, well, if I'm invested in Luminar, for example, that's kind of going short Tesla. And really, like the reason why I initially started investing in ChargePoint is because it was cheaper share price than Tesla, but I wanted to be exposed to that space. But with seeing that video from about Luminar, it makes me think, well, going long any EV related stock that's not Tesla is effectively going short Tesla, and I don't want to be doing that. And so I have a very small Tesla position, and so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be very small, incrementally, fraction of shares, increasing that Tesla position, and I will be making up that difference by trimming my ChargePoint position at a loss, at like a 2/3 loss, which sucks. But who knows how low this is going to go? And I have a lot of conviction in Tesla, and also thinking about ChargePoint, thinking about Blink, and thinking about EVgo. There is a variety of EV charging stocks that can succeed, but also that can fail. And just thinking about what happened with Fisker, that was trading above a downtrend, but then eventually it broke below it, and it just kept going lower, and they eventually became delisted. And so I have concerns that maybe not in the next few months, maybe not in this year, maybe well after a reverse split in August, and maybe that ends up saving them, putting in the bottom. I have concerns that ChargePoint or any of the charging station stocks or any of the autonomous stocks or any of the other EV stocks that are not Tesla could go to zero or be delisted, whatever. And so just for me, from my personal perspective, I'd rather trim out a ChargePoint at a loss, so not completely sell because that could be the bottom. And me talking about this could be a bottom indicator. So good to always consider that. I've sold some stocks at the bottom. I feel stupid about it. That's partly why I'm trimming out of ChargePoint. So effectively, what I'm probably going to be doing with ChargePoint is I'm probably going to sell 50 shares a day to buy back some, or to buy a fraction of a share of Tesla and a share or two of TSLL, which is 2x leveraged long Tesla ETF. I just don't see anything with this that's like screaming bottoms in. And since it's trading below $1, options data sucks. And I like to look at options data. Unusual Whales are just looking at the options tables themselves. Looking at the options table here for ChargePoint, look at that. It's boring because options are traded in 50-cent increments. And when a stock's trading below $1, there aren't that many options. And so, yeah, I mean, I could very much be a bottom indicator, so do factor that into it. But I just kind of view this as, I don't know, I've slowly been accumulating a position like the past year or two, more than a year, and it's just faded. It's just gone lower, and I just keep trying to get my average down. It's like, I'm going to stop doing that. And so on Friday, I sold 50 shares at a pretty big loss. I lost $50 on those 50 shares, down, below my average of, around 166. And yeah, that sucks. But I'd rather, mitigate the possibility of it going to zero. Cautiously, just be cautious. But ideally, and I do think that it very much will be likely heading up to $1. Before August, but I don't think that will be held. And I think that what was one that was it Nikola? I believe Nikola did something like that where it was trading around $1 and would go up to it, but then it'd only be up there for a day and then it'd go lower. So I think that charge point could go up to $1. I just view it as a time factor that I want to be going long Tesla right now, but I don't necessarily have a lot of cash on the side. And so to adjust for that, I'll trim out on charge point in case it goes lower, but leaving a lot on the table for, when it goes up to $1 or so. And then maybe I accept a 30% loss rather than a 60% loss, like what I'm effectively doing right now. So I don't know if that's not super uplifting or anything, but that's just kind of my perspective. I feel like it's risky right now, and I've just lost a lot of conviction in EV plays other than, or like long-term holds in the EV space other than Tesla. Like I've got a NIO play, Rivian play, but Rivian I'd like to hold long-term. NIO, that's a play. Yeah. And then let's see, NASCAR All Out saying CHNR, funny feeling it has its moment next week. So I'll pull that up. And I'll also, Amphadrew is requesting Palantir, so I'll add that up here as well. CHNR. China Natural Resources. I mentioned this in the NIO video. I'm wondering if there's going to be some Chinese stimulus pretty soon. And we'll look at CNR, what that did September last year. And then Palantir. And then I got a lot of other chats to catch up on. Actually, or am I at the bottom? No, I'm pretty close to the bottom. NASCAR All Out saying, being calculated and conservative can be good. It can be good, but I tend to get out of positions too early. Or, and then I like FOMO in later. So I'm still refining that. But, basically, if in the span of a couple months you can make a 20% profit, which is not crazy considering some of the moves that we see. If you can do that consecutively, you're doubling your portfolio every year. More than that, 20% in a couple months. So that's kind of my goal. But I'm trading options more, and I get a little degen with those. We'll have to see. May to June might be a devastating time frame for me, but I think I'll be all right. Wait, do I have Palantir added there? I have added it. And NASCAR All Out saying, but from the wise words of Mario Andretti, if everything feels under control, you're not going fast enough. And so is that related to NASCAR? I don't know NASCAR too well. But if everything feels under control, you're not going fast enough. You want to push to the limits. And yeah, and I think that, the market pushes us to our limits. Everybody seems really bearish right now. Engagement has been pretty low. I feel like, although you guys, with the live stream seem to be pretty engaged. But just as far as video performance and stuff goes, it hasn't been that great lately. And that might be because of me, because I've been a little bit down with the morale. But when, you see that tends to be kind of when the best time to be buying is. So it's pushing us to our limits. Our morale has, dropped off the screen. You can't see my hand anymore because it's gone from here to here. And we got to be pushed to our limits. And so right now, I think that we're going to be seeing a rally into next week. But whenever I get really confident on that, the opposite happens. So I'm cautiously optimistic. And Benjamin saying, what do I think about TECX? I'll add that up there. And then Amphadrew, yeah, no problem. And what are my thoughts on Fastly? Dang it, I'll pull that up. I feel like, I say dang it because I just closed this. I want to add to watch this, add symbol. Okay, there. So I'll add Fastly there. But I'm just going to go through these in the order that your request. Your Unity video is great. Are you buying now? So for me, I unfortunately, this time of year, because I don't have it in escrow, which, kind of matches my style. So it's not a big deal. I have property taxes due the end of the month. And so I basically have all of my cash going to that. So I'm not really buying too much or not adding any to my portfolios because of that, and or because I add to my crypto positions on a daily basis. Basically, I add to my accounts on a weekly basis there, but I haven't been for stock. Unity, I have some calls and I've added to those a little bit. And because of that, I haven't really been adding to shares. But to be honest, like, I love that stock, to be honest. I think that's like the most beautiful chart. There's also a good community around it with, Bronx Viking, Colin Gladman talking about it. And the likelihood that Roaring Kitty's trading it seems really high. And it just seems like it's an absolute deep value play. The fact that I was covering it when it was at those lows makes me really proud, which came about because of a request from Ticker Request Live. And I think that's, I don't have, let's see, how many shares do I have of it? I do have some cash on the side from, I don't know, maneuvering last week. Oh, because of Luminar. Yeah, I rolled my covered call, so I feel good about that. And I might get forced out of that position next week. But that sucks, but that's more cash to be putting into other things that I like. Anyways, what am I looking at? I'm looking at my phone, if you're curious what I'm doing. For Unity Software, I have 7 shares at a price of $22. And then in my Robinhood account, I have 1 share at $23. So very small position. I feel stupid, having such a small position as always. But I think that's also, one of the nice things about this channel is how small of a fish I am. And that's one of my downsides is I need to get bigger into plays. And that's what, options have been helpful for me. Being cautious with them, but also putting more money on them. But yeah, I mean, if I wasn't paying property tax, I wouldn't be buying 100 shares of Unity, but I'd try to get my shares up to like 20 probably. I have 7. If I'm able to exit some of my positions tomorrow at small profit or break even, just, trying to manage risk because I don't have a lot of cash on the side, I probably get another few shares to get my share count up to 10. But yeah, I love Unity Software. I just think that's also tough too, because it's like clearly there's a love, it's emotional. But just, I feel like I've been spot on with my analysis for that chart, and nothing's forced with it really. I've gotten in early on some trades because of that love. But talking about Unity, if you're not seeing it up here, I'm not going to pull up the chart, but yeah, just thinking about that, I think my analysis has been really good with it. And it's been a really good example of like, have conviction in the levels and have patience because you're spot on, buddy. And, so I love that chart, and those 7 shares, maybe I'll trim, but I'll be holding at least 2 shares until it gets up to 75, at least. Maybe I'd sell 1 share up there and I'd still have another to hold. Yeah, small fry, I'm a little guy, but I like that. I love that chart. You can say, I could go on about Unity. So thanks for saying that. And also I have to give a shout out to James, who was relentless about requesting that. And he actually kind of TO'd me during pre-market prep on Friday. Just because, it's like at the end of every video, I say, share your thoughts in the comments down below. And what I'm really saying is your thoughts on the stock that I'm talking about, or if you have a request, give me something with it. Don't just put the ticker in it. Ticker Request Live, you can just put a ticker and I'll go over it. That's fine. But because I try to respond to all the comments, and if it's just like, if it's relentless, it gets really tough for me. And also, stocks move slow. And so part of, what I have in the title of that video, patience, my patience was exercised, and also it just takes time for these things to play out. And yeah, so I just think that's such a beautiful chart. Anyways, I need to get back to CHNR. I'm curious to see, what did this do back in September? So this was the beginning of October. This hit a big high. End of September, this was going up. I think that's probably related to stimulus announcements from China, and that's kind of expected to be happening. And I should note I'm streaming for about 2 hours now, so I'll probably wind this down pretty soon. But so CHNR, what's the question on it? Just to look at it. Funny feeling it has its moment next week. Let's see. What kind of natural resources do they do? Holding company mining rights that allows it to mine, process, and sell non-ferrous metals extracted or produced at Yangchong Mine located in Anhui Province in the People's Republic of China, or PRC. The company operates through exploration and mining non-ferrous, and so ferrous, that would be iron, metal segments. The company focuses to continue its acquisition and exploitation of mining rights, including the exploration, mineral extraction, processing, and sale of iron, non-ferrous, mining non-ferrous iron. That's weird. Zinc and other non-ferrous metals. Let's look up what non-ferrous means, because I would assume that means not iron, but maybe that refers to its oxidation state. So what does non-ferrous mean? Non-ferrous. Non-ferrous metals or alloys are defined as materials that are not iron-based like their ferrous counterparts. So yeah, this seems a little counterintuitive that it says iron right there. Common non-ferrous metals include copper, aluminum, and lead. Ferrous metals contain iron, making most of these metals have ferrous metals contain iron, making most of these metals have a magnetic property. Non-ferrous metals are found in the earth as chemical compounds. And so, yeah, I was thinking maybe oxidation state, because ferrous versus ferric, I believe. Ferrous would be FeO3, sorry. This refers to iron oxides, also known as ferric. So excuse me if I said that as ferrous. So ferric oxide, or hematite, which is a naturally occurring mineral and key source of iron for the steel industry. So maybe they're referring to ferric. But if we look up FeO2, that would be iron dioxide is a novel iron oxide that is stable under high pressure and temperature conditions, potentially important understanding Earth's lower mantle and oxygen cycles. And okay, and so maybe we want to look up FeO3 iron, and that is also known as ferrous oxide. And so, yeah, I mean, it could just be referring to the oxidation state of the iron if they are mining iron. And so this could maybe just be referring to deeper ore iron, because this doesn't mention anything about, let's see, where it is in the mantle, whereas FeO2 is a novel iron oxide stable under high pressure, deep in the Earth's crust, or temperature. Also deeper, more pressure, you're going to have higher temperatures down there, potentially important for understanding Earth's lower mantle and oxygen cycles. So the deeper you get into the Earth's mantle, the Earth's crust, you're going to have higher pressure there. And then there's also going to be lower oxygen. So that would be, I believe, I don't know Earth's crust cycling that much. I'm more of a water person. But yeah, so maybe because this is non-ferrous, like, this one, FeO iron, ferrous oxide, or or Wustite, or Wustite, I don't know. I want to say that in a German accent. But yeah, so maybe they're just going deeper because this is non-ferrous. This is non-ferrous. This is ferric. So maybe that's something there. Oh, I saw this. Woohoo! I was thinking something else. That got me nervous for a second. But yeah, maybe this could be having its day. I think that NIO's looking good. Just put out kind of an extensive video on that. If we do draw a trend line, I mean, this hasn't broken out yet in my view. If I draw this from up here, I wouldn't consider that a breakout. I'd consider that a fudge of the chart. And so really, if I connect to that pivot point, just move this down to kind of intersect with a high from over here. Or maybe I want to just do this with those closes or approximate closes. Yeah, I could do the open up there and then kind of intersecting. Yeah, and this, I kind of like this progression because over here, you know, this is the open, closed lower. The open was the, you know, basically the formation, the beginning of that downtrend. And then here the close was testing that, but got rejected. And then here we got a close above it, but that was a fake out breakout. And we got a pull back. And so, yeah, maybe this week we could start to see this move. And that would match nicely with kind of my thesis with NIO that this dip is being bottomed. This is bottomed, although in the overnight it's down 5 cents. But I like to see a gap up, move higher. Probably not going to see that. But that could be corresponding with China stimulus. So maybe we get an announcement of that. I keep rubbing my head and closing my eyes because my eyes are tired. I'm getting tired. But so yeah, hopefully that was helpful. NASCAR all out. And I'm not going to elaborate on it too much. But yeah, I mean, I think that this could for sure be breaking out. I'm the laggers in the Chinese stocks. I think that they could be moving a lot pretty soon. And so Palantir is next. I'll try to go over that kind of quick. This is like a doodle that I had. It's kind of an ugly doodle, but this is kind of played out pretty nicely. I don't know that this is going to come down. I think that this is probably going to go up. And so I had a share of Tesla at 69 bucks. I sold it before the gap up. I didn't have much on the side, and I wanted the cash. I was had a little bit of profit. But I should have sold at 100, you know, or higher. But anyways, I think that this is... Sorry if you heard my neck crack. I needed that, though. I think that this is probably going higher. And in the overnight, it's up $2.60, about 3%, around 93.50. I don't know that it's going to be testing all-time highs soon, but I think that generally things are looking good in the market, and that, I mean, if we start to see volume really pick up in this, because it's been pretty chill, I think that it could be going higher. So, I mean, I like Palantir. I'm not holding, but yeah, I like Palantir. If it does come down, though, like if it comes down to where I've got this alert here at 65, I would then look to see if it's looking more bullish. But I'm not going to adjust the drawings here, you know, really consider. Actually, I'm just going to delete that because I don't know, that's too much clutter. Stuff over here. Yeah, I'm going to delete a lot of this stuff. That gap there, I don't need that anyways. So yeah, there is a gap up here. 112.06 was the close on February 19th. And so that is a gap that has not yet been filled. And there's also, you know, another gap below it. The close on February 21st was 101.35. Oops. And a dashed line blue there. Those are some gaps to the upside that we got to fill. And so, yeah, I think that could be happening. Maybe there'd be some resistance, though, around 101.35. And let's see, we can get kind of an idea of where this could be going if it does put in new all-time highs. So just doing a quick Fibonacci extension here. That would be suggesting a 100% will be around to 135. So maybe if it does go to new all-time highs, that would be the level I would be looking at. 135.69. So it has to go. It has to go there because there's a 69 in it. So I like it. And then next is going to be TechX. TECX. Looks like I have covered this in the past. And is it on the DGen Ed list? It is. Good. Okay. Ooh. I'm just going to delete my drawings because I don't think they're useful at this point. Let's see. I don't know. I think that this is risky. Tectonic Therapeutics price target cut to $101 per share from $112. How many analysts are on this? Oh, analysts. I've got it up here. I don't know. There are no analysts. Market cap is 312 million. I have no idea. But considering that it came down here and bounced, I'm sketched out by that. Maybe we do a Fibonacci retracement from that low of 1530 up to the high of 6107. 786 is 2509 and trading notably lower than that. Put in a bearish engulfing candle with an increase in volume. That does suggest that it'll probably go lower. If I do, let's see, remove my drawings and then switch over to the weekly time frame. Bearish engulfing candle on the weekly with volume increasing. I think this is going lower, and I feel like this is probably, oops, didn't want to do that. Hopefully it's still lined up. Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably going to be retesting 15, the lows there. And yeah, I think that this is, I don't know, maybe. Oh, yeah, the news over here. I guess it just updated, or I scrolled to it. Tectonic Therapeutics is maintained at overweight by Wells Fargo. Yeah, to me, I don't think that this one is worth the risk. Maybe it finds some support with the highs over here. Like if I throw up, let's see, I mean, moving averages below all of those. But let's see if I throw up the volume profile. This is like contending with this volume shelf or high volume node as what it should be referred to as, I believe. Right around there, low would be like 20. I think that this is probably going lower. But I don't know, maybe I'm a bottom indicator with my sentiment on this. But yeah, I think it's a risky one. So I'd be cautious with it. Have a plan, have a stop loss level with it. Whatever you think is good for that. But I feel like it's probably going lower. So from 21 down to 15, that's more than a quarter of a percent, more than 25% reduction. And I think that could be happening. So be cautious with it. And yeah, Fastly. And so that'll be the last one that I go over because I need to get to bed so I can do pre-market prep. So Fastly, looking over here. I love this little cup. Very proud of that cup. Drew that during a live stream and I had some trouble drawing it because I think Webull had just done an update and it was the doodles were getting all wonky. But yeah, so there's this uptrend that was kind of notable here. Higher lows, broke below that, and then retested it, acted as resistance now. So that is not a good look. Although increased volume with a bullish engulfing candle on Friday. And if I remove those drawings and switch over to the weekly, what can we see here? Volume did increase, so that's good, but it's kind of in an inverted hammer. So that might be suggesting that there's going to be a little bit of a pullback. Looking at this on the daily, maybe this could be coming down to like 660 or so, finding some support around this consolidation. Oh man, I'm going to see what, let's see, where's my X account? I'm going to see what Mr. Chart Norris has to say about it. Mr. Tim Waltz. I've been searching him a lot frequently just to troll him. Because I don't follow that guy. What a D-bag, you know? Anyways, so I'm going to search for Fastly. I'm sure Mr. Chart Norris has talked about it. Let's talk about the latest from him. This is from March 17th. And he says, daily chart update. Unfortunately, you are shitting your pants. And so I think that level was right around here. So that intersects with this big candle here. So yeah, I mean, we kind of got that fulfillment of that move to here. And then it looks like it's pulling back. Let's look at the same time frame that he has. He's looking at this on the daily. So that's a big gap. No, can't be it. That's this over here. I think I'm looking at the bigger time frame. And so this move up corresponds with that. And so he effectively has it like this and then put up that volume profile, which doesn't really match what I have. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is probably pulling back here. I'd say 6. I mean, I think that's kind of what I was saying. If I 660, I think it's probably pulling back to 660. Could go lower. I'd follow Chart Norris because he does do good analysis of lots of stocks, and it's really just kind of like this node here is, yeah. So it could be pulling back. Purple line there is at like 630. I guess it would be nice if it put in higher lows. So the low from here was 631. So I'd like to see it put in a higher low than 631 if it does pull back. But yeah, I mean, on the daily, this is looking good. But on the weekly, like I was showing, it's looking like, yeah, it's gotten rejected. And it's probably going to pull back some. So, yeah. And I guess I could, just out of my own curiosity, unusual whales, net flow, and let's look up FSLY. I'm imagining this is going to be, actually, you know, is more bullish, 54%. And so we see that the stock price goes up, net call premium goes up, but only by 11.65 thousand. Net put premium goes down, but only by less than 6,000. Looks like a lot of selling there of those puts. If we look back past 30 days, doesn't look like too much is happening. So I feel like this hasn't really found a bottom yet. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. And with that being helpful, I'm going to swig this. So cheers to anybody who's hanging on at the end. Delicious cherry. And so, with all that being said, you know, those are just my thoughts. If you found them helpful, make sure you like the video, like the stream, share your thoughts in the comments down below. And you know, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. But I'm going to get signing off because this has been a 2 hour and 20 minute stream, 2 hour and 19 minutes right now. I'll be streaming in the morning, 8 a.m. I'm going to try to do it for pre-market prep, but I might be a little late as I tend to be. But anyways, thank you guys so much for hanging out. It's been fun. It's been a jam-packed, dynamic stream. I enjoy it. Hopefully that means we're going to be starting to see some volatility to the upside in the week ahead. I'm looking forward to it. But anyways, take care, you guys. Sleep well and get some rest before